This week we're going to be focusing on aggression. We're going to be talking about the definition of aggression, which is physical or verbal behavior that is intended to harm another person. We're going to be talking about a couple different types of aggression. Your book lists off hostile and instrumental aggression. We can also add aggression against, relational aggression, aggression against people that we have relationships with that is meant to kind of break down the relationship. We see that a lot of women do this, or a lot of girls do this. Hopefully, older women aren't doing it, but we do still actually see it. Backbiting and talking about other people behind their backs and spreading rumors and that sort of stuff would be considered relational aggression. So we'll also look at this week the influences on aggression. We can talk about some biological influences such as genetics. We can talk about how alcohol influences the brain to basically decrease our ability to say to ourselves, like, that's a really bad idea, don't do that. We can also see that increases in testosterone can impact the brain and the body in terms of arousal level, or how emotionally charged we feel about a situation. And we know that when people are more aroused, they're more likely to aggress. We also see what's interesting with testosterone is that arousal from a different source can increase testosterone. So let's say that I'm watching one of my favorite movies, and my favorite movies are really aggressive, and they're about violence, and they're about war. As I'm watching that movie, you can see that I would become increasingly aroused, like, almost like I'm experiencing a stressor myself. And then people who do this constantly or consistently are generally going to experience more levels of anger and frustration, which we know lead to aggressive behavior, if you're not stopping to check them, or if you're not pausing to relax before you behave. So we'll see that testosterone can have an impact on aggressive behaviors. We'll also see that diet, not eating enough calcium and omega-3 fatty acids, has been correlated with increased aggressiveness. So you want to keep all of those things in mind as you're looking at, why, or thinking about why would a person behave in an aggressive manner. There's also going to be cultural and social impacts or influences, such as the culture that you live in. We know that the South has more of a culture of honor than the North does. People in the South are more likely to respond to a slight, someone bumping into them in public aggressively than a Northerner would. We also know that how your culture responds to violence is going to either reinforce or punish violent behavior. So if we reinforce violent behavior, then people are more likely to do it. If you think about operant conditioning, so things that are reinforced are going to increase, things that are punished are intended to decrease, although we see that if we physically punish aggressive behaviors, really what you're saying is, I'm going to beat you for hitting someone else. And so we want to avoid doing that, and instead talk to children especially about what they should be doing, and even to the point of ignoring, obviously not violent behavior, but ignoring aggressive behavior, and reinforcing behaviors that are considered culturally appropriate or appropriate by the parents. So there's lots of stuff in this chapter, and there's some really interesting studies about group influences and how being part of a group can impact our aggressive behaviors. So people who are part of a group who become aroused are more likely to behave in an aggressive manner. And as the number of people in the group increases, then the more likely you are to actually de-individuate and not think to yourself that I'm causing this. You're kind of thinking to yourself that the responsibility for this behavior is diffused across all these people, and so really it's not my fault that this happened. And so people kind of explain it away based upon the size of the group. We also know that watching violent media, so watching porn, watching movies, watching all sorts of different video games, can impact how much we empathize with victims in normal life, and also how much we actually feel, because we can become desensitized to aggressive behaviors. We can become desensitized, to aggression, into negative behaviors in general. So we can watch the movie and say like, oh, look, another guy that died. Whereas people who are not desensitized to violence would be very, upset about something like that. So the more TV that we watch, the more violent video games that we play, the more porn that we watch, the more likely we are to actually not empathize with victims of violence and to think negative thoughts about people who have been victims of violence. So all of these things are going to be things that we're talking about this week, and I hope that you find something interesting in this unit, and I hope that you learn the answers to some of your questions as to why do people behave in the ways that they do. Thanks.